everybody, Dia Davidson here with another conversation on race. This time our discussion is going to focus on interracial love. And joining me now to share their experiences, their journey, their advice are two couples that are very familiar to our community. Of course, we're talking about John and Mary Jo Ford, and of course, Ryan and Amanda Lemon. Guys, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
All right, let's talk. We're going to talk really candid. We're going to be transparent with one another, okay? When we set out and we have an idea, you know, especially girls, we dream of who we're going to marry, and then we plan out, we have the wedding already planned out before we even meet you guys.
True.
Mary Jo, Ryan, you both have been married before, but you married people who were of your same race. Amanda, John, these are your first marriages. So when you set out to marry Ryan and Mary Jo, did you set out to marry somebody who looked just like your parents? Or was it just sort of the luck of the draw? And what encouraged you or drove you towards marrying people who were outside of your race?
Ryan, you want me to go first?
You go first, Mary Jo. Knock it out.
I don't think either one of those things. I don't think that I set out to marry someone who was white the first time, and I don't think that I set out to marry someone who was Black or of a different race the second time. It just was the person. I fell in love with the person. And so, and we were just talking last night that me being married before helps our marriage, because I, you know, kind of the pitfalls. You're definitely, in my situation, I know that I was definitely like, this is what I want. I won't accept less than this in a marriage now. And he was all of it. So it wasn't like I set out to find
the cute bald Black guy, right?
Yeah.
Ryan, how about you?
You know, I grew up in a community where there were no Black people. I mean, I went to a high school where there were no Black people. And so even in my college, when I went to college in the 80s, it was still at a time where white guys did not date Black girls. And oh, she said, "Be quiet, you're screaming."
You're screaming and we're in a public area.
And so, but I, you know, Mary Jo said something that is true. You know, my first marriage kind of helped me make me a better husband today. And the funny thing is, you said, you know, did you marry somebody to be, you know, like my mom? She may not look like my mom, but she is my mom. I mean, there is no doubt about it. So I did end up marrying somebody like my mom, even though she may not look like my mom.
So the color of our skin really doesn't represent who we are as individuals. It's just sort of like clothes that we put on. It's just what's on top, not what's down here, right?
I would agree with that. Yeah, I had a dream about what I wanted to marry and who I wanted to marry. And I'm sure John can relate to this, especially since it was my first marriage. And this is kind of, he's funny and he's fun loving. And everybody knows Ryan is goofy at taking his shirt off and goofy and brings out that wild side of me. Yeah, and that's who I set out to marry. It had nothing to do with the color of his skin, you know, because I dated different colors throughout my entire life. I'm sure John can relate to that. But I did not set out to marry someone of a certain race, no.
Yeah, and I grew up in a single parent household, and so for me, when I met Mary Jo and I saw how hard she worked and how much of a great mother she was to our son Sam, it reminded me a lot of my mother, right? And so I was really attracted to that. And also, not many women can pick a fantasy football team the way Mary Jo did, right? So, you know, it was kind of a no-brainer for me. It was like, it'd be crazy not to you know, ask this woman out for a date, right? I did that. So
Yeah.
Okay. I'll tell you from my own experience, I've dated white males, and I remember a young man distinctly when I was in college. And this would have been in the 80s. So that dispels your myth about white guys don't date Black girls. in the 80s. And he was so sincere and he was so genuine, but it was me. I was the one who was, you know, when we would walk in public, he would want to hold my hand and I was pulling away because I would see the stares and I would hear the comments. What is it? That was just a dating situation, but what is it to be living it and walking it out every day and people catching glances and maybe snickering saying, John, you just don't know, you know, you missing out on sister, or Ryan, oh my God, you know, what about her hair? You know, I mean, how do you walk it out? How do you live it each and every day, knowing that society is looking and judging?
It's interesting that you say that, Dia, that it was you that held back. I don't notice it hardly at all. He's always the one that notices people staring, people looking. It never dawns on me.
Well, you know, what I tell Mary Jo all the time is that, you know, black people, we're so resilient, right? So my biggest fear is I want to protect my family, right? So my first responsibility is to make sure my wife's okay, and that no one disrespects her. And I, you know, I have my story is pretty unique. I have 5 sisters, right? So, right,
yeah.
And I can't say that my older sister was thrilled about me marrying Mary Jo, but now, you know, they talk to Mary Jo before they call me all the time now, all my sisters, right? And so, you know, my thing is my mother always taught me to, you know, treat people fair. And if you love somebody, you love them unconditionally and never be ashamed of who you fall in love with. Because at the end of the day, when we come home at night, this is our house, this is our family. I sit down at the table.
Yeah.
But now we took a walk in our neighborhood 3 weeks ago, something like that. We were walking and we did have someone yell at us.
How did it make you feel, Mary Jo?
It was just so jarring because I'm just like, I mean, it was like 2 guys in their garage sitting there and yelled at us, and like in our own neighborhood.
Crazy.
It is.
Yeah. How about you guys, Ryan, Amanda? How about you?
I notice it. I notice that sometimes, especially when we're around Black females, I get shade. People looking at me, kind of giving me the eye, like, "Why am I with him?" And I've told him it's because he's older, you know, and not realize. But I do get a lot of shade, especially in the Black community, for wearing, you know, for dating and being married to an older white man. But he doesn't notice it, just like, you know. But there have been instances where I've been treated differently than he has. We went to an establishment in Lexington and I wasn't given a drink, but then when it was indicated that I was his wife, all of a sudden the drink was available. So there are privileges that come to being married to a Caucasian person. I don't know if it's because of who he is in the community, but there are privileges that come along with it. But also there are times when you do get some looks, and there are situations where I was not let into places in Rupp Arena before, when he would walk down, and I'd be like, okay, well, that is my husband, and I get some looks. Is he really your husband? So I mean, he knows that, and it's been a lot of times where it's kind of puts us in a questionable position. So, yeah.
How do you feel, old white guy?
She's right. I would never notice it. And I did notice it for years until one time I finally saw it. I'm like, you're right. I saw it that time, you know, like I saw the shade. So I guess I'm just naive to it, and I don't want to believe it. I just don't want to believe that people feel that way about it, you know, in this day and age that we live in. But then we see the times that we're in, like right now, and it just makes me sick to my stomach that we even have to deal with it. You know, we should be way past it by this time, you know?
But if we think about it, though, we go back to the Lovings. That was just 50 years ago, you know?
Yeah.
So
I'm sure part of it, too, is even when we're not together or before we ever knew each other, as white people, we don't go into stores thinking people are looking at us.
Yeah.
That's never a thought we've ever had, whereas that's been a thought for John and Amanda their whole lives, is to be what's going on around you. And that's never been an issue for me.
Yeah. You know, that was kind of funny, Dia. Like our best friends, Dante and Nicole Key, they're an interracial couple. And so when we go out to eat, the hostess or the host will automatically try to sit me with Nicole, who's white, and her with Dante, who's black. Like, no. I'm with the black girl, you know, Nicole's with the black guy. You know, we try to have to, like, you know, play musical chairs there.
Right. I would take the lowest bill, whichever bill is the lowest. That's kind of, I would go there.
I didn't hear you.
I said I would take the lowest bill, whichever bill was the cheapest.
Never with me. Never with me. No.
All right, but are there social outlets? Do you feel that you are more comfortable with other interracial couples, or with maybe all black couples, or maybe all white couples? Or is it just kind of a hodgepodge?
So what I will say about Mary Jo is that she can go into any, you know, her personality is so, you know, it's just outgoing personality. And so my test for me was that I put her in front of my family. Oh. And if you can survive with my family in Alabama with my sisters, and she could do that, you know, her, you know. So I think, and that's one thing I was attracted to her about, is that I know that she could handle her own, you know, because we, you know, I'm attracted to a strong woman, and she was never afraid, never nervous. And so that was, so I never worry about that with taking her into situations, because we're confident in our marriage. We're confident in how we love each other. So we never worry about it. I never worry about that.
But I would say we don't really have a lot of interracial couple friends. We're either with white people or black people.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Ryan and Amanda's probably our friend couple.
It just so happens that our best friends are. It just so happens that, I mean, our other set of friends are African American that we hang out with, but it just so happens that our best friends are the opposite of us.
Yeah.
So
let's talk a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about children. Sometimes that's used as a weapon to say, well, what about the children, right? As a way to kind of make you think, well, maybe it's just too tough. Maybe that would be too tough. Amanda, you bring a different perspective because your mother was white, your father black.
Right.
Mary Jo, you and John have a beautiful little girl, Vivi. Was that ever something that was challenging, or that you thought, well, maybe this would be too hard? And Ryan, Amanda, your children are biracial as well. Do you worry? Do they ever question who they are? Do they identify one way or the other? Or just kind of walk us through that part of the family, the interracial family.
So I would say, to me, the biggest difference when you have a white person and a black person is parenting. I feel like there's a huge difference in the white community versus how they parent kids. And that is probably our biggest arguments, is how we parent them. But as far as like our daughter, I think she 100% identifies as black.
Do you find that black families are more strict, or what's the difference that you notice?
Oh, I coddle so much more. Slide, and we saw a meme that summed it up perfectly, and it was the dad from Good Times, and white mom and her kid. And it was the little kid put his hand on the stove, and the white mom is crying and hugging, and the dad from Good Times said, "Bet you won't do that again." And we're different in that way. And I've found in talking to other people, like there's a cultural difference in how children.
Yes.
Amanda,
I would agree with that entirely. Wouldn't you?
100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Yes.
So,
yes.
Amanda, are you the disciplinarian?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah. I do not put up with any bull crap, and they know better than.
But you're a little lady and you've got sons.
I know, and the boys know that mommy wears the pants in the family, and they know that if they want daddy, if they want something, to go ask daddy. And matter of fact, yes, yeah.
But Ryan, you're raising Black men. How do you cross that divide?
It's been a learning process for me, to be honest, especially with Josiah and Michael, our two sons. And a lot of times when it comes to racial issues and things that have to deal with, I have to listen to Amanda and my friend Dante and my friend Ron, and I kind of have to listen, because I have no idea what it's like to walk in their shoes when it comes to issues like that sometimes. So it's been a learning process for me as they get older and have to deal with some of these things. And Amanda will say, it's like, Ryan, you don't know what it's like. You don't know what they're dealing with. So my philosophy on this one has to be, you have to learn on your own. Sometimes you have to fall to learn a lesson. And sometimes she doesn't agree with that. And sometimes when we're dealing with, Josiah, who's sitting right here, so he's listening to all this, it's kind of tough for him to have to deal with some of these issues as he gets older.
Yeah.
Mary Jo, you're raising a young Black woman.
Mm-hmm. And she definitely identifies as that. And I don't know if she made a choice or whatever, but she will definitely. She has said before, I have a son from my first marriage, Sam, who's all white, and she will say, like, if her and daddy go do something, she'll say, "Oh, only the Black people are going." we left the white people at home.
Right.
The white people.
And like a lot of times.
But that's how society is going to view her. So
right.
Amanda, you're biracial.
I've said that if I get pulled over, nobody's going to say, "Oh, by the way, you're right." No, they're not. That doesn't work. No. That's what I've told my kids too. They're not going to say that. So yeah,
but with the same conversation, I, as a Black man having a white son, because Sam he's not my stepson. I call him my bonus son.
Yeah.
I don't like the way it sounds, stepson, and I can't take credit for that, but I responsibility for him, right? My job is to make sure he sees people for who they are, if he has a question, he can come to me and ask me any question, and I'm extremely proud of the young man he's becoming, because he sees things and he's very protective of his sister, right? But there's times when he doesn't realize that the privilege that comes along with having a different color skin, and so not only have a responsibility to my daughter who's Black, but I have an even bigger responsibility to my son who's white, to know that there'll come a day and time where hopefully he'll step up and he'll say, "No, man, that's not right." If he's in a situation where people are being, racist or bigots or whatever it may be, I want him to be a strong man to say that, right? I want him to have the confidence of Ryan Lemon to marry outside of his race, right?
Right.
Talk about that. Advice for couples who are on the path to interracial love. What's your advice to them? Because society is not going to be, at least right now, kind. So what's your advice?
You really have to listen to the other person. It's not just been this year, as 2016, we dealt with a lot, and there's, it's not new, but to truly be able to walk through life together, I have to try to understand what it's like to be in his shoes. I'll never know, but I can't dismiss it either. I can't say, well, that doesn't happen because it never happens to me. So I think that you really just have to talk and listen and not, I don't get it. I don't understand it. Tell it, what are you feeling right now?
But it's similar to Mary Jo being a woman in sports. right? You know, she's had.
It's not that similar.
It's not. But
that feels a little.
But my wife has come home before, and she knows that she's been treated differently before, you know, and so we can't compare the two, but it's, you know, if you want to feel that way, you can understand how it feels when people treat you differently, as if you're not capable or, you know, to do things.
Hey, you guys.
What'd you say?
I give all the credit to Kevin Costner in the movie Bodyguard
Oh my God.
for making it cool for white guys to date black girls, first and foremost.
What about Rex Chapman?
That's true. Rex Chapman first, but then definitely Kevin Costner.
Sidney Poitier in Guess Who's
Yes.
Coming. Uh-oh, did we lose Ryan and Amanda? I think we lost Ryan and Amanda. All right. Well, guys, thanks so very much for joining me and being able to keep your signal through this conversation. And thank you all. Yes, thank you all so very much. Yes, thank you so very much for joining us for this conversation. Be sure to watch all of the LEX 18 platforms for more of these conversations in the future. Until next time, I'm Dia Davidson.